The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 210.
210.
What's our topic today?
This is overcoming religious trauma.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
I think it's
for
important.
Sure. I do too.
I mean, they're kind of all important, I guess. But
yeah, this one in its own special way for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we hop into it, anything you want to talk about from last week?
Last week we did Falling Off the Spiritual Wagon, and I hope that some of you worked on this last week. I did, for sure. I have tried my hardest to stay on the spiritual wagon and to not blame the universe when things don't go my way and to keep my vibration high. And it's not always easy, but one of the things that I have done is definitely first thing in the morning, if I feel myself, even like any kind of I turn it around. I put my headphones in and I just, let it go and enjoy the morning. And it helps because if you start the morning off bad, then the rest of the day sometimes can feel dreary.
Yes.
For sure.
Yep. I think that's a good way to just address it right off the bat.
Yep. Exactly.
Instead of let yourself stew until noon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then every week we answer 2 questions from listeners. The first one this week is from Janice. She said, I listened to your radio show on Wednesday and you said something that I could use further help with. How do we become our true selves? I don't even know where to start. So this last week on my radio show, I did, what does the universe want from me? And I got a few different questions, but this one, I love this because I did at one point say that the universe wants us to be our true selves. And it is hard sometimes to figure out who you truly are.
Yeah.
I will tell you that now that I think that I have really figured it out, that I can look back to my childhood and say that the things that I have become in my life are things that I only wished as a child that I could. So, for example, I was always really drawn to like the whole hippie stuff, the bohemian and all of that.
Yeah.
But everybody made me feel like, oh, that's hippie stuff. You don't want that. So you can't be that person. So, okay, I won't be that person.
Right.
But now I'm with somebody that's similar to me on this.
Right.
And I've been able to become that hippie person that I wanted to be. But I didn't realize that through those other years that that's what I wanted to be.
Right.
So I just let the universe bring it out of me. I started asking myself, what am I drawn to? What do I really like? Look back into childhood. What are the things that I was drawn to the most as a child? And then revisit those and go, why were you drawn to those things? I don't know if you have any advice on this one.
It's tough for me because I knew immediately I was drawn to art and music from a very little, person.
But that's only a little bit of your true self. There's still so many things.
Oh,
there.
my true self.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's very similar to what you just said. That I became what I dreamt of, but thought that it wasn't realistic.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of areas of both of our lives where we could point that out, where it's just like once you allow the universe to show you who you are, how to do that. So this is a process that I feel like I started after my divorce. And what I did is I just started trying things that I had never tried before, just to see what I actually liked. I started going to movies like The King's Speech. Do you remember that movie? I went to see that by myself. And I thought, this is a movie I would never, ever in a million years watch at this point. But why do I say that? Because I don't know why I say that. I'm just guessing that I wouldn't like this movie. Well, guess what? I didn't like it.
Right.
But there were other movies that I saw that I did like some of the superhero movies that I never would have exposed myself to before. So it's just kind of about taking different elements and asking yourself, what do I like? And if I don't know, let me experiment.
Even in terms of the topic we're going to talk about today, that was something that I went through and searched.
Yeah.
Because I wanted answers, even from a little kid looking up at the sky and seeing stars and and some other things.
Yeah.
That I craved that knowledge, the answers. So I wanted to know, where did it all come from? You know, what is the source? Who is God? What is it? You know?
Yeah.
And I searched even through religion.
Yep.
Sometimes to find that.
Yep.
And I wish that even back then, I think I thought to myself, why does this have to be so, you know, the way it is?
Right.
Like, why can't we just believe in something and it just be okay?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So that was part of finding out who I really was.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. There's so many different areas of this, but it's about opening that up and seeing, what do you really want for your life? Who do you want to be? What do you know what you really like? And just trying different things and seeing and building yourself based on what you like, not based on what somebody else likes. Because I think, like, after my first marriage, I based a lot of what I liked off of him and didn't really, know what I wanted. And so then you gotta figure it out. You got to work it out. Yeah. So I hope
that's a great place to start, though.
Yeah.
Going back to your childhood, what interests you?
Yes.
What did you love?
That's when you're the purest, and when you're, you really feel who you are, what really brings you, I've always been drawn to metaphysics and psychics and stuff like that since a very young age, and I didn't know why. But it was another one of those things that people say, maybe you shouldn't be so into that. Not my mom. My mom was totally into it, but the outsiders, and that makes it even harder. So I hope that answers your question, Janice, as well.
Thanks,
as
Janice.
we can answer it. And then the next one is from Kathy. This is a lighthearted question. She said, how did you start your podcast, and how do you get paid by having one? Newbie here, yeah. So I think she's
sweet. That's awesome. I love it.
I think that she's thinking about starting a podcast.
Okay.
But we were talking back and forth and we didn't get to that point yet. She said that she loves to talk, but she doesn't know if anybody wants to listen to her talk. But you know what? If it's about the right subject, people will want to listen to you. You just have to find your tribe, find your people.
And you know what? You're never going to know if you don't take a chance.
Exactly. So how we started was neither one of us knew anything about podcasting at all, but we had kind of got these, we did get these intuitive messages from my mom, whoever else, that told Danny to buy this recording equipment and get familiar with it. We were like, okay, whatever you say. Yeah. We'll do what you say. And then I was on a podcast, and after I was on that podcast, it was like kept being pushed on us by my mom. You got to start a podcast. So really, we just had to take it from the beginning. There was nobody I could really turn to ask for advice on how to get things started, because Danny's handled, he's the engineer side of things. Right. And then I handle the other stuff. So I put the stuff up on Buzzsprout, and I do all of the social media stuff. And so I had to find the host. So you have to find a host. And there's a whole process, really, and I'd be more than happy to help you if you need help on it. But I want to answer the other question of, how do you get paid by having one? Well, we don't. That's a part of this. We do this because we love to do it. Yeah. Our niche, our spirituality subcategory here under religion is it's saturated. So we kind of get forgotten, I think, in there, and you need sponsors to make money is really what needs to happen. So we need to draw sponsors to be able to make money. But honestly, for us, I would love to do that. I would love to have sponsors and make money on the show.
It's a lot of work.
It is. But even if it stayed like this, as long as we still have people that are listening and that are enjoying the content, I'm happy to do it. It only takes up a couple of hours of our week. It's not a big deal, and we really do enjoy it. Yes. And so we would continue to do it for free if that's the way that this goes.
And it has brought other things. Excuse me. It has brought other things as a result of doing it. Yeah. In our life. So we've had offers on this show, and then in other arenas, Samantha has been offered and now does her own radio show as a result of doing this podcast. Yes. Because had we never done this, she would have never been on there. Right. for anybody to hear
Yes.
and say, we would like you to do this. So
Yep.
even going further back to the purchasing of the recording equipment, we were drawing like tarot cards, and things were coming up about me in particular saying that I was going to have to go back to school.
Yeah.
This
Learn
was
a new
before the
thing,
messages came about the podcast.
Yeah.
Through Samantha's mom. So I was sort of like, go back to school? No, man, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to college. That's like right where my mind went.
Oh yeah, straight
I'm not
there.
going to college.
Even though it said like, or learn a new craft or something.
Yeah,
He's
I was
like, no way,
what?
man.
What? Yeah, new? No, hey, wait, slow down. But the truth is that there was a member of my band that exited who had the most knowledge, the technical knowledge of how to record. And that left me in kind of dire straits of what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Everybody else had a little bit at the moment, but we couldn't all go to their house either.
Yeah.
I had the space. I just needed the equipment.
Yeah.
So that happened. Then those messages about,
Yeah,
the
do a
offers
podcast.
of podcasts and being on them came
Yeah.
first. Then these messages of, we have to do this. And I was like,
Yeah, both of us, because I was really super shy. I mean, I still am, but not behind the microphone anymore.
Right.
But I was at first. It took us a while,
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on how you measure success.
Yeah.
We have made a lot of friends. We have
Yeah.
a lot of people that we really have enjoyed getting to know, and we love doing this. And so for us, it is successful.
Yes.
The universe pays us, really.
Yes.
It does, in so many different ways.
That's
So,
invaluable.
Yes.
That money couldn't really match that.
No, exactly. So yeah. So if you're looking to start a podcast to make money, unless it's true crime, I probably wouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point you will. But I remember one of my friends telling me it takes 2 years for a podcast to really be successful. But that's in in an area where it's needed. Video games or like I was saying, true crime or
Right.
beauty type stuff. Those are all high in demand, but these little niche type subjects like the spirituality or music or whatever sometimes can be forgotten about.
Yeah.
So.
But again, it's what you're willing to do, the time you're willing to put into it.
Yep.
And, the sky's the limit, really, though
Yep.
nobody's your boss. What was the company that we just got listed?
Oh, I totally forgot about that. I don't know. I'd have to look. But yeah, we did. We got in their top 100 of spiritual podcasts. I totally forgot about that.
Which, geez, I mean, that's incredible.
I'm going to look at that.
I mean, I know it's
because
just one
here.
company, but you would think there's got to be a lot of podcasts, and they're only counting down the 100.
Yeah.
So that's an honor.
Yes, this was from feedspot.com.
Mm-hmm.
They sent us an email and said that they would like to personally congratulate us on our podcast being selected by panelists as one of the top 100 spiritual podcasts on the web.
Cool.
So we're number 85.
Thank you, panelists.
Yes.
And FeedSpot. We appreciate that.
Yes, we do. I see these lists a lot of these top spiritual podcasts. I'm like, how do you get on those? How do you get... Like, even with iTunes or Spotify, I don't even know how to get us up on the front page. Like, some of that just seems really random. So, yeah. So, if there's anybody that has any advice on this stuff, too, I would love to hear it because it's definitely not my area. Like, I got a lot of other things we both do. So, we
Yeah.
could use some help with that. But, yeah,
Sure.
for sure. So, that's that, Kathy. And if you need more info, you know where to find us.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, though.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yes, it was. I liked it. Okay, and then I do a reading every week, so let's get this one up. This is for Bob and Rudy. Bob says, can you give me insight on why he is so standoffish with people other than me? He loves meeting other dogs, but people not so much. And I love this picture because they look like they've got the same exact look on their face. It's
awesome.
so adorable. It's like sometimes
You don't know where Rudy starts and Bob's beard.
Yeah, exactly.
ends.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. They got the same look. Like, what is this picture? Okay, so let me talk to Rudy. He's very selective about people because of his life before he came to you. It's going to stay this way. There's nothing you can do about it. It's okay. I would consider him to be an introvert dog when it comes to other people. because he is very standoffish. He doesn't trust easily. And so if you have somebody that's consistent in your life, that's one thing. I'm not talking about that, but like, when you take him out and you expect him to just be happy and greet strangers and stuff, he's not that type of dog. He's not going to do that. He's too worried. One of the things that he's showing me is if he was taken from you. And I'm not sure if this is maybe happened to him in the past or why he's so afraid of this, but I see him actually like being afraid of somebody picking him up and stealing him. So he's very clingy. And he doesn't trust easy because he's afraid that if he lets his guard down, somebody might take him. So there might be something there that, from the past before he came to you. I don't know if you know anything about his past, but it definitely seems like trauma of some kind. But he also likes to guard you and protect you because that's his job, he says.
Yeah, he looks like he loves him a lot.
Yeah, he does. You're very gentle and he loves that.
Yeah.
He loves to hear you talk out loud. He gets very involved with what you're saying, but he doesn't know what you're saying. They pick up, like when they're not picking up intuitively what you're saying, they pick up the tone and the flow and the way that your voice sounds, and that tells them everything that they need to know about what you're talking about, whether it's pleasant, what kind of mood you're in, and all of that. So he loves to just listen to you talk. Yeah. So
cute dog.
Yeah, he is adorable. So I hope that answers your question. This is just his personality. There's really nothing you can do about it, and sometimes it's okay.
Yeah. He just has some trauma, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there you go, Bob and Rudy.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. All right, so let's give our info before we get into the topic.
Yes.
So you can find me, SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. I have a radio show called Beyond the Bridge that airs every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on VoiceAmerica.com on the Empowerment Channel. I have a big month coming up for June. We're going to do a Pride episode because it's Pride Month.
Nice.
And then I'm going to have another psychic on the show that draws the image of the spirit that's coming through. So like, you don't give her any information. She just draws the spirit that's coming through and gives you a reading with it. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And then for Father's Day, because I did a mommy issues show for Mother's Day, I'm going to do a daddy issues show for Father's Day.
Why not?
So it'll be a fun month. So and 1 week is Danny's birthday, and the week after that is mine.
Yes.
On Wednesdays this year. So yeah. So you'll get to spend my birthday with me if you listen to the show.
Cool.
Yeah. And then you, sir.
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And just a reminder, I sell prints on my website. Check it out.
Yay.
That's all for me.
Fabulous.
All right. Here we go. Episode 210, Overcoming Religious Trauma.
Yes. I think that I know both of us have our own stories of where our religion background is. So maybe we should give you a little bit of background on that first, so you know where we're coming from. I honestly was not raised with religion.
Neither was I.
Yep. I was introduced the very first time really to religion, 6th grade. I went to a Lutheran school, and it confused me. Everything about it confused me because I wasn't ever taught any of these things, and I was different than the other kids because I didn't know any of this stuff. Like the private school I went to before this one was not religious at all. Oh. But most of the other ones in our area are. So I ended up having to go to religious school.
Right.
I was teased a lot for my not having knowledge of this stuff. I remember having one little girl that was actually one of the pastor's daughters that called me out on my swearing and said, every time that you swear, there's a check mark for the devil. Like, okay. I had no idea of this stuff, but as I got older, I went to a Catholic school for sophomore and junior year, and then I dabbled in religion myself as an adult and had my own experiences there. Right. But I don't have the kind of trauma that we are going to talk about today. Yeah. Absolutely not.
My parents both, my mom went to public school her whole life. My dad, up until high school, went to Catholic school. And he finally told his dad kind of, hey, they're smacking us with pretty hard, sticks and stuff and getting in our face. And my grandfather, didn't like that and said, okay, fine, you can go to public school.
Yeah.
So I think my dad immediately was like, yeah, no, none of that like Catholic school kind of thing or whatever, private school in that realm.
Yeah.
So I was not exposed to it till I went to a Sunday school thing for somebody's birthday once, but I don't remember any kind of sermon per se.
Yeah.
So not until I was probably 19 did I, and that was me kind of in my life, which I mentioned earlier, searching.
Yeah. Yep.
Searching for the truth. That I went to religion for a while.
I know that we both know a lot of people that have experienced religious trauma. A lot of people that are religious and don't even understand at this point that they have religious trauma.
Yeah.
But because it's something that it just seems like it's such a natural part of life.
Yeah.
Like most people have some kind of religion, I don't know. The way we look at it. But let's give the definition of what is religious trauma. Religious trauma occurs when a person's religious experience is stressful, degrading, dangerous, abusive, or damaging in any way. Traumatic religious experiences may harm or threaten to harm someone's physical, emotional, mental, sexual, or spiritual health and safety. Religious trauma stems from spiritual abuse, and these are two different things. Mm-hmm. So spiritual abuse is an experience that occurs between two people, or like the child and the parents, or, somebody of the clergy or whatever. Like this says, it says, often the abuser is a religious leader attempting to control or manipulate someone beneath them in the church, such as a volunteer, community member, or visitor. It may be a parent using religion to abuse a child, or a spouse drawing on religious doctrine to assert their right to dominate or control their partner. Religious trauma, on the other hand, is a systemic experience between a person and their religion as a whole. Often the trauma is not linked to one specific person, but to a series of people over a period of time who enforce a traumatizing message or fail to help with when a traumatizing situation takes place.
Yeah.
Religion, I can't say all religions, but some religions really, really frighten me because they have a way of really, what's the word I'm looking for here? Changing who somebody can be entirely.
Yeah.
From who they used to be, or who they could have been really, because there's so many things that go along with this.
Yeah, it can be very subtle and it can be very direct.
Yeah. At
the same time.
Yep. I asked our listeners, have you as a child or adult experienced religious trauma? And 27% said as a child they did. 11% said as an adult. 35% said yes, both as a child and adult, and 27% said no. Nancy says, being raised Jewish, a girlfriend of mine told me that I was going to hell unless I accepted Christ as my savior. I believed it and was sick with grief for months.
Jeez.
Yeah. That can be very scary.
Especially depending on the age that you hear something like that.
Yeah.
Can immediately, I almost, what I see is like a hot brand hitting a cow's hide.
Yeah.
It like leaves that kind of mark on you.
Yeah. As a child, I feel like I was more like in tune with reality when it came to religion. Like when people that I knew had a religion and they would talk about it, I wasn't interested at all. Right. I didn't even want to go there. When they would start talking about they're going to hell, it's like, please, you're talking about a little man in the middle of the earth. People are like, there's a man in the earth and it's hell and there's a pitchfork and, all this shit. And you're like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, you're responsible for your own decisions. Why are you blaming some, fake man or, entity or whatever?
Yes.
Be responsible for your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, that's something that, doesn't always go that way. So then I also asked our listeners, if you experienced religious trauma, what religion was it that you experienced the trauma from? And, I put all Christian as one area.
Yeah.
But 67% said Christian. But then somebody wrote in Catholic, and 17% said Catholic. So those all fit together. Okay? So basically everything except there were 2 people that were Jehovah's Witness and 2 people that were Mormon. And, 5 said other, but I don't know what the other was. But, so Catholic. and the Christian go together. So you are talking about 84% here, that these are Christian religions. And that is the religion that both Danny and I, when we did dabble in religion, that is what we, dabbled in. So we have some stories and stuff from listeners that I'm going to read a few of these. Sunshine said, I still go to Mass with my grandma when I'm in town just to make her happy. She's old, no need to stress her out of my new beliefs. She's not a total a-hole, but last time that when I was out there this year for Ash Wednesday, in the past I always took communion no problem. But this past time, there was a new parish priest, and he seemed to be making a huge point to if we don't attend regularly and you're a sinner to not take the communion and come up arms crossed on the chest. So I did, and instead of the love I used to feel, it felt like a light exorcism. Forgive this sinner of all their sins and demons. Like what? I believe in my heart that I'm a good person. I do not harm any, and correct and apologize when I do. I don't steal, adulterate, lie, harm. I live my life out of love, and I'm proud of myself for that. So why, sir, why am I a sinner? Why am I deemed bad when I am living life of love and acceptance like Jesus did? It's just not for me, and I think that's okay. No Jesus juiced or Christ checks for this girl, apparently.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
Because they can't control you.
No.
So they'll categorize you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things about religions like this is that they have their little rituals, like, the Jesus juice and all of that. But when they look at like paganism or spirituality or anything like that, and you talk about lighting candles or saging, oh, that's a sin. Well, it's a ritual. It's bad. Well, your communion is a ritual. You're saying that you're eating the body of Christ and drinking his blood.
I would say 9 out, and this is just speaking from Christian and Catholic sort of point of view. So this is people that believe in Christ as the Son of God is what I'm referring to. 9 out of 10 of those believers do not act like Christ.
No.
They do not forgive the sinners, and they do not hang out with them.
No. When Danny and I were talking about this actually a few days ago, that when I went to church as an adult, it was at times where I felt like I needed to be saved. Yeah. It once was after 9/11, and I felt like the world was going to come to an end, and that if the Christians were right about that you have to be the Son of God or you're going to hell, or you have to believe that you're going to hell, I was like, well, I better go to church and start believing this. And then the second time I was doing something not so good in my life. And I thought that as long as I continued to do the not so good thing, if I went to church, it would all be okay. And I think that's what a lot of people think. As long as I go to church and I, say I'm sorry for this or whatever, that you're going to be forgiven and it's going to be okay. And it's like, what?
And you won't see that little man in the center of the earth.
Yeah, what?
With the pitchfork.
I am a million times a better person after having my spiritual awakening, just based on the fact of what I know now. And that doesn't include hell. It doesn't include the possibility of going to a fiery pit, but it does include, after I die, seeing myself do the things that I did wrong and right. And I want to not have any more negative things to look at and when I go to the other side. So from the time that I had my spiritual awakening until I die, I plan to do as best as I can to be a really good, caring human. That is what religion is supposed to do to you. It's supposed to make you want to love and be a better person. But for a lot of people, it makes them be okay with being a bad person. It's very, very strange.
And, confusing, I think Charlie was one that chimed in his comment about, I wish that they would teach you about these earlier in life so you could sort of choose.
Yes, he said, I'll read it real quick. He said, I honestly don't know why we are not informed about all religions and decide what religion we want to be. I used to think I was a religion then I knew nothing about. Yeah, because you're raised, your parents are like, this is what we are. We go to church. They probably don't even explain it to you most of the time. They're just taking you to church. Like, you don't even have an option. Having an option, I feel, for both of us was a lot easier of a transition in what we do now,
Right.
where if we would have been hardcore Christians, it probably would have been a lot harder to come to this. And I do work with a lot of people that they have a hard time, you know, they're still coming out of all of that.
I feel like the big secret for me to learn is that all religion for me is hogwash. It's baloney. I don't believe that that's all man-made. The rules, the the guilt, the condemnation, all this, the fear that's put into you about going to a place for eternity that could be something like hell.
Yeah.
This is hogwash. I believe there is a creator for our universe.
Yeah.
And whatever it is solely responsible for all of our existence.
Yes.
The issue here is this particular species on this planet is very unfriendly in a lot of ways and likes to fight and argue and be right.
Yes.
So you have all these religions, and then there's wars and fights over who's right when nobody's right.
Right.
Because that's all made up by you.
Yep. Not
by the source. I think intuitively when we come into this world, we do know, because children can be very mean, but at the same time you can see the purestness about them. Children can be mean because they learn to be mean.
Right.
Either by older children or other children of their peers or parents.
Yeah.
These are outside sources that create this. It's not the child coming out being mean. So intuitively we know that we're supposed to be nice to each other.
Yep.
And we're supposed to accept one another. It's not until we're told or reprimanded about skin color and sexual preference and religious beliefs and geographical place that you live at. You take none of that in consideration at first. Yeah. None of it.
That's right.
Until you're affected by somebody else.
That's absolutely exactly right. Yep. So let's read a few more of these. Lori is somebody I've known for a long time, since I was, I don't know, like 19 or 20 years old. And Lori grew up Jehovah's Witness. And so I've talked to her about this in the past, and I've kind of watched the different things that she's gone through. And this is something that she wrote. She said, "I've dealt with religious trauma all my life. Even though I have been completely out of the Jehovah's Witness cult for over 20 years, I still deal with shunning by my family and beliefs and behaviors that were formed through the total control of the religion. Every aspect of my life was observed and controlled. We were not allowed to question anything or do research about religion, especially our own. Going door to door was traumatic. I mourn lost opportunities and talents I was not allowed to explore when I was younger. There is just so much to unpack. I don't even know where to start, but I think one of the main things I deal with is self-esteem and my worth as a woman with a mind of my own. It would be easier for me to answer questions and explain how much and in how many ways this religion has affected me."
Yeah.
That's a tough religion.
Yeah, and you know what? My hat's off to you that
Yes.
you got out of that, because that sounds like it
controls
not
every
a good situation.
aspect of your life, that religion. I think Mormon is kind of up there too with that it's very controlling.
I think even across the board, sometimes I feel like we're giving a lot of this, whatever we're worshiping, is this kind of, and I slipped out and said it, I said he, but like this male entity.
Right.
Or persona or something, whether, it's the old man with the gray beard in the sky.
Yeah.
Even down to Christ, like, why would God make it a guy?
Right.
That would be the savior.
Right.
My honest opinion is, if there's any kind of gender about the creator, it's going to be more like a woman than it is a man.
Yeah. I don't believe
because I don't think there is either.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the love and the compassion.
Yeah.
And the understanding is much more in the female
yeah.
gender than it is the male.
Yeah. this is one of those arguments that when I was into Christianity, it was like, well, is God a man or a woman? Mm-mm. Well, why does it have to be either?
It's neither.
It's neither. There's no gender to souls.
There's no human aspect about God.
No, definitely not. No, but I don't know how we get all wrapped up in this, that there's a man sitting up in heaven judging us. Yeah. It's like, wow, if I really did believe that, I would, be scared.
I'll share a little bit of my story about how I kind of came onto it or stumbled upon it in my life, is that I spent like about from 17 to 22 years old sober. I was like, I'm going to focus on myself and my issues in life, and I'm not going to drink or, do drugs or anything like that. So I really did. And I spent a lot of time, focusing, whether it was going to meetings, therapy, and just working on myself. It got to a point where I would sit in meetings, and as helpful as they could be, I felt like I was hearing a lot of this, always a sad story. Let me tell you another drinking war story or a drug using war story. And it's cool. It's sort of sensationally entertaining at first, but it gets a little bit like, it's just sad.
Yeah.
And then I would go out to like coffee with people afterwards, and there was some very talented people around me. And I was, myself aspiring to, again, be artistic and musically creative.
Yeah.
So I would be around these people, and like nobody's doing anything. It was just this sort of, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, so therefore my life is doomed.
Yeah.
Because I have this addiction for the rest of my life.
Right.
And so I decided to leave. And I eventually did, smoke pot again and drink again. But I was 20-something years old, and things were different.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an issue for me. I think I was more forced into that as a teenager because my parents were worried I would go off the deep end.
Right, yeah.
So that brought me to visiting a church. I had a very close friend that I met in meetings, and we became very, very close. And I'd see him at meetings. Sometimes he wouldn't be there, and I'd be like, where is it? And then all of a sudden she'd show up, and he'd be like glowing. And I was like, what's going on? Where you been? Why are you so happy? So he's like, I've been going to this church. And it was just a little small kind of Calvary church in our town here. And I went with him, checked it out. And I can tell you that, I had some moments, at least one, maybe a couple in particular, in that church. And it was a very small congregation. It was like a 2:00 in the afternoon service. It was music oriented. It was run by two gentlemen, a pastor, and then the guy that would do the sermons, because the pastor was very soft voiced and not very bombastic. As good of a speaker in front of people. So I had moments in there that were moving. Okay? Like literally hairs standing up on your arms. I've also had those moments on mushrooms. Mm-hmm. I've had those moments praying.
Yeah.
I've had those moments listening to music. Yeah. That's a part of this whole thing. This simulation is that I don't need to walk in that building to feel that.
No.
If I want to, that's fine. But I was subjected to certain things within this congregation that traumatized me.
Yeah.
And pushed me away from it.
Yeah.
I became involved in the worship team, the music. I was dating somebody at the time, and my friends, closest friends, we had a band. And we were performing kind of under like a Christian band, but really our lyrics weren't very Christian. They weren't evil, but they just were about whatever. I don't know. And so the pastor, not the official pastor, the guy that would give the sermons, he was like this is where it got strange. He was the pastor of the church, but he really wasn't the ordained pastor that had the rights to be the pastor of this church. And he would counsel with us and talk with us, and he would find out that we had our girlfriends and that we were having sex. And all of a sudden just like flipped out and would say, you need to marry them like right now.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, what? And he was kind of telling all of us this privately. And then when we would come in for like band rehearsal, we're telling each other what this guy's telling us and realizing he's telling all of us this.
Jeez.
Then we go back to our girlfriends and explain to them what's being said to us and getting feedback from them that this man's hitting on them.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's where I'm like, I'm done. Yep. And I left. Well, my friend who I said that kind of brought me there, I don't think he felt responsible because it wasn't his fault either. But he grew up in a very religious home. And so his family, his father in particular, and a close friend of theirs, opened up their home to have like Bible studies because they felt that we were traumatized by the experience. And that was sweet of them. It was cool. They were trying to show us more like there's no condemnation, for leaving. You don't have to worry, blah, blah, blah. But my life started to change, and my beliefs and my interests and music started to really become prominent. I was no longer playing with this band at the church. I had now moved on and got into a group called Contradiction, and my life changed tremendously. So I wasn't going to these Bible studies, and I would get every now and then when I'd go over to see my friend or either come by to pick him up or, see him, I would get this kind of guilt trip. Didn't see you at Bible study, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I would try to just brush it off as much as I could until finally I said, look, I don't think I'm going to be coming anymore.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I went from going to like 12-step meetings where I felt like everybody's having a bad day and miserable because they're cursed with this disease, then going to church and nobody could ever say they could have a bad day because Christ will take care of everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look, bottom line for me is it's all baloney.
Yeah.
I've had amazing spiritual experiences inside and outside of those walls. And not some, with the exception of those times in those walls, the other ones had nothing to do with sermons or preaching or any of that.
Yeah.
But it is a story that's been told for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And people will just follow something that is completely edited. I mean, stuff just completely removed. The whole story's not there.
Yeah.
The truth is not there.
Yeah. No,
it's just not.
Translated so many times.
We don't even know how the hell we got here.
No.
How this universe even started.
No. I had mentioned on my radio show last week that the universe wants us to believe in something. Mm-hmm. And you had said that was something that you didn't really agree with. Or I said everybody should have a religion or something. And what I meant by that is that I believe everybody should believe in something. Right. That everybody should have something to, look up to or to make them feel like there's a bigger picture here or whatever.
Yes.
But it shouldn't come with all these rules that religion comes with. And it shouldn't come with the trauma. And I'm not saying that there's no trauma involved in like spirituality because every group has its bad seeds.
Oh, yes.
Every group.
Yeah.
And every group has its good ones too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good Christians. Unfortunately, most of the ones that I know that are very, very religious are some of the most judgmental people I've ever met in my entire life.
Yes.
And they will judge you on everything that you do. I have family that does not know that I'm a psychic because they are so religious that it would be like, oh, never again will I speak to you.
Right.
I have a half-sister, Amanda, who, if you don't know the story, we didn't even know about each other until like a year and a half ago. So we have the same father, but I was not raised by him. Mm-hmm. She was. And he was very, very religious. And so she wrote this, and this is just a little bit about what she went through growing up with religion. When I was in 5th grade, we went to church where almost everyone did it. She's talking about speaking in tongues.
Okay.
It scared the F out of me. Mark and Kathleen, that's her mom and dad, said it was God's language, and you have to listen hard enough to hear it and repeat it. Kathleen and I went to a women's retreat with a church at about that time. The preteens had their own schedule of religious talks. One class was about speaking in tongues. The ladies in charge went on and on about being filled with the Spirit and letting it flow out. They had us all stand on a bench with our eyes closed and start praying out loud. Not the same prayer, just whatever came out.
Right.
The idea being that eventually your prayer would turn into tongues and you now spoke a secret God language.
Right.
The four ladies walked back and forth in front of us, getting close to hear us pray. They would push on our stomachs or head and say, "Let it out." I made up 4 words and kept repeating them over and over. They figured it was for tongues, and I was celebrated once we all got back together with the moms. I never spoke in tongues. I just pretended to for so long.
Yeah.
The next church we went to said that speaking in tongues was a sin unless you had an interpreter, so no more tongues. Whatever church we went to was right, according to Mark, even if it was the opposite of the last one. If they believed in healing, we healed. Visions, you got them. Tongues, sure, why not?
Yeah.
A constant race to keep away from hell.
Yeah. I had an instance where the band, during the church period of my time, we were playing at that church, at the Calvary Chapel. And it's a very small church, so it's not a big production or nothing,
Yeah.
real small.
Yeah.
And they brought some guy in that represented Calvary Chapel as a whole. He was flown in from somewhere, I don't remember. But they kept this guy in the back, like you couldn't talk to him, couldn't meet him.
It's weird.
Until they wanted to come in and bless the whole chapel before the concert.
Yeah.
Because we were playing rock music, I guess. I don't know. Not, again, it was like basically considered Christian rock music. But so, yeah, they came in and all these guys started walking around the room speaking in tongues and like looking at you or me, like expected me to do the same thing. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, whatever. It wasn't my thing. I just found it more interesting that they kept this guy sort of away from us.
Yeah, that is really weird.
And brought him in like as he was a big spectacle or somebody to do. I was like, we're on Skyline Drive, man, and TO. This is like what's the size of this building?
Yeah,
maybe 2,600 square feet. It was like, what do you think's going on here?
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
And many years later, when I had left, as I mentioned, the 2 guys that were doing that church, the pastor and then the guy that gave the sermons, they parted ways because the Camelot started crumbling.
Right, as it usually does.
And I visited the church where the actual pastor had started over in Simi, where we lived before. And this is when the time I was with my ex-wife. I don't believe we were even married yet, but so her and I talked about like maybe visiting a church and seeing about having that in our life. Okay, cool. So I said, well, my friend does it in Simi. We go to his sermon. And I, seen him before the sermon started. And so we're kind of sitting there and all of a sudden he said, I was really moved today. I was going to talk about a particular topic for my sermon, but I was moved by the Lord to talk about something different. And today I want to talk about whether salvation is reversible, meaning can you walk away from your own salvation? And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And I walked away and never did it again.
Yeah.
And I had tried a couple other churches here and there and was invited, by others.
Yeah.
And I just didn't, it wasn't for me anymore.
Yeah. I want to read a couple more of these. This one is from Amy. She says, I grew up Baptist, but I never really enjoyed church, which brought on its own level of self-condemnation. My church would always talk about being on fire for God, and I felt like I wasn't good enough because I didn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. I tried to be a good Christian, and I wanted to feel the passion that others did because I thought I was supposed to. But I didn't, and I had times of thinking, well, why even keep trying? You'll never be good enough anyway. The messages I received were not only to judge others, but to judge yourself too. It wasn't until after college that I really started questioning things. And at 38, I feel I'm still trying to unlearn certain thoughts. Letting go of the self-condemnation thoughts have been the hardest, probably because messaging I also received from my family. It can be tough to realize you're enough in a world constantly telling you otherwise. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything like religion or spirituality should lift you up. It should make you feel good about yourself, not to point out the negatives. No. We all have negatives.
No, and again, thank God you got away from that.
Yeah. Sherry said, I still remember a Sunday school lesson where we were told if we don't accept Jesus, our hearts were black and we were going to hell. They made a whole art project around it with red construction paper for the heart of acceptance and black construction paper for people who didn't. I thought about it a lot as a kid, so mentally abusive.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. That's what bothers me is the religion is made for a reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't designed just because this book appeared because 12 guys decided to write a story and document history.
Yeah.
No, it was designed for control.
Yeah.
For fear. And the bottom line for me is that there's only one place to go. Hell does not exist.
Right.
You go one place, and that's where your soul was born.
Yep.
Heaven.
Yep. My sister had a really hard time letting go of the idea that hell existed when we met and she first started going through her spiritual awakening. Our dad was like, he would go so far as to not allow her to listen to certain songs. Mm-hmm. Like Hotel California was the devil's song because it talks about stabbing with a steely knife. Well, he obviously doesn't know what that line means.
Because he doesn't know how to spell, probably.
Right.
Look at the lyrics sheet.
Yeah. And also, oh gosh, Knocking on Heaven's Door was the other one that she said he wouldn't let her listen to. But there was all kinds of things, all the things based around religion. But like she said, it was whatever religion, whatever church they went to. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's like with spirituality, I'd never have that. My beliefs don't fluctuate. No. They grow. Like I start to expand my mind and they grow and grow. Mm-hmm. But it's not about this, okay, well, this one says that I should do things this way. No, it's about how you feel that you should do things. What's the right way to do things, So we have a few minutes. Here are some signs of the possibility that you have suffered spiritual abuse. If you feel you have been subjected to any of these, has someone ever used or attempted to use religious beliefs or practices to manipulate you into certain actions? Mm-hmm. Are you free to practice the faith of your choice in your home? Has a parent or partner ever tried to force their religion on you? Have religious leaders ever tried to justify domestic violence or protect known abusers? A lot of times the church will do this. Oh, your husband is abusive. Well, he has a right to because he's your husband. And divorce is a sin. And so, stay. Just dumb stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have freedom of choice in how you live, how you raise your children, how you interact with your partner, and so on? Or are those decisions based on your religion or religious leaders, or even your own parents? Right. Here's some signs of religious trauma. Because religious trauma is based on the spiritual abuse. A lot of times this will bring on self-hatred, because the church will use the scare tactics, and Amy was talking about that, about the self-hatred. Mm-hmm. Also, shame is something that a lot of religious communities use as a way to influence and control the members. Instead of learning to accept responsibility and accountability for your own actions and forgiving yourself or others, people in these religions often learn to cover up or deny anything that could be considered wrong or sinful instead of taking that accountability.
Yep.
You may have a hard time making decisions because those that experience religious trauma are accustomed to making decisions based on what their religion tells them to do. And here's one that you were kind of talking about. You may be a victim of purity culture. Purity culture is a religious concept that focuses on ideas about gender, sexuality, sex, virginity, marriage, and procreation. Religions that rely heavily on purity culture may monitor children's social interactions and segregate based on their sex. This was the first little bit of sexual or of religious trauma that I had was in this category here, was being told that I was going to hell for having sex because I wasn't married.
Right.
And it was like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yep.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If your religion emphasized this purity culture, you may not be prepared for a healthy sex life. Many people who struggle with religious trauma practice abstinence until marriage and may feel dirty or guilty when engaging in sex, even in their marriage.
Right.
Religious trauma can cause, contribute to, or otherwise worsen mental health disorders. Commonly associated mental health issues include PTSD, depression, anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, and addiction.
Yeah.
So how do you move past the religious trauma if this is something that
especially if you've grown up with it, you know, and that's a point I want to make. It's like, I would say about 5 out of 10, at least Christian people that follow the Bible, do it solely because that's how they were raised. Right. That's how amazing and powerful that this book is in some way that, and I would say the same amount of people, 5 out of 10, actually know what that book says. If that.
Yeah.
So it's
nice
like,
there.
it really is like a herd of sheep
Yeah.
just following
Yeah.
each other.
Yep.
Because A, it's popular.
Right.
It's safe. It's large, you know.
Yeah.
And you're promised something whether you're willing to believe it or not.
Yes. Christianity especially will tell you a whole lot of stories about magical things that have happened, but then they'll tell you that magic and this kind of stuff that we do is a sin. But if you look back and you look at some of these stories that are in the Bible, frogs falling from the sky, or, you know, a global flood that this wonderful almighty person that we believe to be our Father, wiped out an entire globe of people with a flood. Like, what kind of God is that? Like, these are the stories that we believe, where maybe they're metaphors. Maybe there was a flood and it was just in a small condensed area.
Right,
and God said to Noah, there's a flood coming. And so you don't die and these animals die. Build this ark so that you can survive this flood. Not a global flood, just the one right there. Right. But we totally blow these things out of proportion. We don't think about them logically.
I think that the bottom line, the truth for me is that you don't have to spend time in those buildings if you don't want to. You don't have to tithe 10%. You could pray to your Creator any time of the day, and you're promised to go to the same place as everybody else. And yeah, it's hard to swallow when you go, it doesn't matter how bad or good you were.
Right.
You're all going to the same place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So real quick, before we finish up, how do you move past this religious trauma? Well, first of all, run and don't look back. Run from that religion.
Ask questions.
Well, yeah.
Question authority.
Yes,
honestly,
that too.
quite honestly, you want to see what the truth is in your church? Ask questions.
Absolutely. That's absolutely. But as far as letting go of it, yeah.
Yes.
If you are feeling like you're, on the boat off, but you're scared. I remember being scared of saying there was no such thing as hell and that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, because if I said that, then it was very possible I was going to hell. Right. That's what we have to get past.
Yes.
Are those ways of thinking and just saying, I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it, and I'm going to figure this stuff out, and like you said, learn and ask questions, but I'm not going to go by what they say that I need to go by. I'm going to figure it out for myself.
As wonderful as this life is, this is the closest thing to hell that you would experience, besides, in comparison to the other side.
Absolutely. Some other things, find friends, make friends that have gone through religious trauma. And you know what? If you're in our discussion group, you can see that there's a lot of people that have experienced this. Talk amongst yourselves. Get to know each other. And they are doing this in the group. If you guys are interested in
really cool.
Yeah, working on psychic abilities or animal abilities or whatever, join the group, because there's a whole group of people now in there that are working on this together.
Yeah.
And then also let the anger out. Don't hold it in. There's things nowadays called smash rooms. Go and smash some stuff. If you need to let go of that religious anger that you have because of the trauma, let it out on something. Yeah. Don't keep it inside. Try not to blame God.
No.
Because it's not the universe's fault. It's not God's fault.
No.
The universe is, it's not what
We created this.
what these religions were taught.
Yeah.
See a therapist, get some help that way if you need to. Find your true self and your path.
And like I said, if you have questions, whether you're asking the church or not, or go find other literature.
Yeah.
If you think there's other answers, don't be like cornered by fear to ask those questions and seek those answers on your own.
Explore, absolutely. Yep. And then, of course, forgive yourself for not knowing better, because a lot of times people beat themselves up about that. Oh, I should have seen this. I should have seen this was a cult, or, whatever.
Right.
Whatever it is, forgive yourself because you're learning.
Yeah.
And you don't know. That's how we learn, is by going through these types of things. So don't beat yourself up about it. That doesn't get you anywhere.
Because all you're going to do is laugh when you get to the other side. You're going to be like, man, I wasted a lot of time worried about that.
Absolutely. So there you have it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I like that one.
So I hope that helped some of you if you're suffering from that religious trauma or spiritual abuse, because it is really, really, really common.
And it's real.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Just as much as, regular child abuse, religious abuse is just as prevalent as physical, sexual, emotional abuse. Absolutely.
Sure
if not more, really. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that hide that kind of stuff in their families, like the sexual and the physical and all that. But I know a lot of people that I could see right out the gate that had the religious abuse in their families.
Oh, yeah.
And those a lot of times led to other types of abuse as well. So yeah, there you have it.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, then. Well, before we say goodbye, you want to share your info one more time?
Yes, so you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. You can find our podcast there, or you can find us on social media at Spiritual Joneses on all social media. And for you?
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Yay. And don't forget about our discussion group on
And
Facebook.
our discussion group.
Yep. Our Facebook discussion group, you can find it by either visiting our page on Facebook at Spiritual Joneses, or just search on Facebook Spiritual Philosophachatter, or just Spiritual Joneses discussion group, and it'll come up. You don't need to put the whole Philosophachatter, because people are like, whoa, wait, what?
Thank you, everybody, for this week. That was cool.
Yes, thank you.
You don't have to share those things, and you do, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, we love to hear your stories. It's nice to have other stories. We share ours, but this is a subject that we have our own religious experiences, but our trauma is minimal compared to what a lot of these people have suffered.
And it, in turn, helps heal each other.
Absolutely, it does. Yep.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of this.
That we do.
And, go out there and overcome it.
Yes.
You can do it.
Yes.
And we hope everybody has a great week.
That we do.
Until next week.
Peace and love.